food can take you a place that other things can't. I mean, my daughter, when she was younger, said to me, every time I ask you about a place, you end up talking. And I try to explain to her, your memory to some extent is imprinted by the things that matter a lot to you.
Welcome to the Fun and Bliss Show,
where fun is our practice.
and bliss is our lifestyle.
I'm Monique.
And I'm Moneeka.
This is a show to help you laugh louder,
Dance more often,
savor the silly and sacred alike,
and turn fun into a blissipline.
so we can live lives of more ease, love, prosperity, and joy.
Let's go! Welcome back to the Fun and Bliss Show. I'm Moneeka, the Chief Bliss Officer here at Fun and Bliss.
And I'm Monique, the Chief Fun Officer here at Fun and Bliss. And you all are in for such a treat today because we have an incredible guest. We have a really fun, wide-spanning conversation, which for me is a great reminder of how you find joy and fun hiding in the most ordinary places, making a life, having your work be your fun. And we had a delicious conversation with a special guest about food, storytelling, travel, and the news. But before we introduce you to our guest, we're going to start how we usually start and talk about what we did for fun. So, Monica, what did you do for fun today?
So today I planned my trip to Georgia for the shooting of my movie. So yay! So I'm actually going to go out 3 days early because it's in Georgia. I'm in California. There's a time difference, so I need to adjust. So I'm right on point when we start screening. Or start filming. So I am going to go to Nashville and visit an uncle of mine. And we're going to do some fun Nashville stuff, and then I'm going to go to Georgia to start our shoot. So I booked all the tickets, talked to my uncle today. It was super, super fun.
Yay. That's so
Yay.
exciting.
I can't believe it's right around the corner.
It's been really fun to just observe as this has been taking place.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So what did you do for fun?
Well, I'll talk about what was fun yesterday. So yesterday, my daughter finally accepted Berkeley, so she's going to college at Berkeley. Yay! And I even had some like golden blue confettis. We're celebrating, and I'm so excited. So that was really, really, really fun. And I even have this fun Berkeley mom pin. So I like put on my pin and I was walking around. I'm so proud. I'm so proud.
Oh, yeah,
There's this,
I'm proud.
yeah, this is the Jewish term. It's like nachas, which is basically the pride you feel, like the joy you get from like, the accomplishments of others, usually your kids or your kids. So I'm just filled with that kind of joy. So that was really fun.
Oh, well, congratulations, proud mama.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Today's guest is named David Page. David is a two-time Emmy Award-winning executive producer, the creator of the beloved Food Network's hits Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, the host and producer of Culinary Characters Unlocked, and the author of Food Americana, a book about the evolution of American cuisine and all the cultures, people, and stories that shaped it. And what I love about David's work is this. It reminds us that food is never just food. It's memories, it's cultures, it's identity, it's comfort, it's connection, and yes, it's fun. Because for so many of us, especially high achieving women, food can become another thing we manage, another thing we optimize, another thing that puts pressure on us, right? But what if food could bring us back to pleasure? Back to curiosity, back to the present moment. That's what we're going to talk about today with David. I think you're going to love this show.
Welcome, David. It's so great to have you.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure. So you have a really fascinating path. You've gone from network news and major world events to food television, books, conversations with culinary characters. When you look back, what's been the through line?
Telling stories. I'm
Mhm.
remarkably curious, which is what you have to be a journalist. And while the formats have changed, I still consider myself a journalist. I just find stuff interesting, and I like to talk to people, and I like to tell stories. So it's all the same. It's a matter of finding something interesting and sharing it with people.
Talking about stories,
Yes.
I have to ask about the Berlin Wall. I remember the day that that came down. I was at UC
You
Berkeley. It was a big, yeah, it was such a big deal, but you were right there as it
I remember
happened.
the day it came down. I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I,
could you tell us a little bit about that? What do you remember most? Not from a
um,
journalist perspective, but from you as a
no,
man
from a
that was
me. Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Okay. I was had been living in Europe for a number of years for NBC News. I was a producer. As the communist governments of Eastern Europe started to fall, even before they fell, when it was clear they were gonna, NBC moved me to Budapest so I could be in position, and I ended up running on the ground coverage of most of the communist collapses. And Romania had happened, Czechoslovakia had happened at that point, and East Berlin had become kind of a flashpoint because what was happening was people were using East Germany as a way to get out from other countries, and it was getting pretty serious. NBC Nightly News decided that they wanted to come and do nightly news with Tom Brokaw live from in front of the Berlin Wall. And to this day, I think that the fact that we had 10K lights up to give us a background probably helped incite a lot of what went on. Pardon me while I clear my throat. We were planning the newscast, and there were tons of people there from New York and elsewhere, and I was there, obviously. And Brokaw was getting ready to go on the air. And because of the time difference, the show goes on the air at 6:30 in New York. Was going to, I don't know if it was, I have to remember Eastern Daylight Saving, whatever. It was either 5 or 6 hours different. I think we were going to go on at 12:30 local time, might have been 11:30. Anyway, around 9 in the evening, a cameraman, a kind of flaky cameraman, came running into the production trailer, pretty agitated, saying they're leaving. They've opened a gate. And it turned out, I think it was the British. You watch spy novels and they talk about Checkpoint Charlie. Checkpoint Charlie was the American crossing, and I had been going into East Berlin for years, and so I was pretty familiar with the process. And it was like I used to tell people, it was like the same movie, but once you crossed over, it went from color to black and white because it
Wow.
was the same architecture, but everything was gray. And
Mm.
although the high point was, if once you got through, if you took a left under the elevated train stand, they used to sell the best vice verse, those little white sausages. I always look forward to that. Anyway, he
Talking about
came.
food.
Yeah, well, so Peter comes running up saying that they're streaming out, and my answer to that was, yeah, right. And then he had one of the first cameras that had a built-in monitor, and he opened it up and started playing the video back. And yeah, they were just streaming across the bridge. So I passed that information on to the executive producer of the show, and we all, got into gear. And from there, it just went nuts. And then we had a crew. I mean, we had a bunch of crews there, but one particular crew, Howard and Robin, were known as the Stretch Crew. They were out of London. They were both rail thin and about 6'6". So I grabbed the Stretch Crew and we ran to the wall because we were in front of the Brandenburg Gate, which intersected the wall as in between East and West Berlin. Somehow I got a ladder. I don't know. I mean, obviously it was something that had been there for production purposes to hang lights or something. I brought the ladder to the wall so that Howard and Robin could climb up and shoot down. And then a bunch of Germans took my ladder away from me. I lost control of my ladder. And not a phrase you often hear people say, I lost control of my ladder. It happens when you get older.
Usually it's not a good thing.
Well, as I've explained to people, when I've lost my ladder, this doesn't usually happen to me. But anyway, I lost my ladder, and all these Germans went up, and that's why you saw them all down the wall, because they stole my ladder.
Wow.
And then, so we stayed through the newscast. I would suspect, because people probably realize the newscast is done on Eastern time in New York, and usually simply replayed on tape where you guys are on the West Coast, but when there are news events, you update it, you cut into the show live for the West Coast. So I would suspect that we did a West Coast update. Anyway, after we were done, I took a crew, this time a German crew. Who was it? It was Joe and Heinrich from Munich. And we went, and Joe had been covering news for so long, he had actually shot the wall going up.
Wow.
Many years earlier. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, and we walked through Checkpoint Charlie, which if you've ever seen a spy movie, it's like the car stops and the papers, and they look under the car and they open the trunk to see if you're smuggling. There was none of that. I mean, it was Checkpoint Charlie was deserted. And we just walked through into East Berlin and started working, talking to people and shooting pictures. And it was a remarkable evening. It was, and it's, the wall did not physically come down that night. You see pictures of people banging on the wall. There was some of that in the ensuing days, but the actual large scale destruction of the wall didn't happen for quite a while. I am, by the way, one of the few people on earth who has ever been knows anyone in the news business. I'm one of the few people who doesn't have a piece of the wall. Everybody else, like NBC, sent pieces of the wall to people. I never bothered to get one, and now I kind of wish I had one. But I was there. It was kind of cool. What's even in some respects neater is a few days later. I forget what day of the week this was. I know it was during a weekday because Brokaw was anchoring. The weekend anchor for nightly news at the time was a guy named Garrick Utley, who is a god to me. He's one of the most legendary. I mean, he's passed away. One of the most legendary foreign correspondents in the history of journalism. Also, by appearance, like the straightest, most uptight guy on earth. He wasn't really, but he just looked like Mr. Solid. And the last guy you would expect to get into rock music or anything. But he did the weekend shows. So he was in Berlin for the first weekend shows that followed the wall falling down. And Joe Cocker was in town to do a concert, kind of celebrating the fact that the wall, it was open. And at the concert, he did I Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. And this was late in the evening, and I went to Garrick and I said, how about we do a music video with a montage of pictures from the events of the week over Joe Cocker singing this song? And Garrick said yes. So now we're on deadline, crashing this music video until the last seconds. And I'm the only, best of my knowledge, who ever put a music video on a weekend nightly.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, it must have been awesome, though.
Yeah.
And look, and then the reality is, then you follow this up, and as Americans often do, there was just this assumption that everything would be American democracy hunky-dory. West Germany was not. Many West Germans were not thrilled to have East Germans as part of their society because they viewed them the way people in New York view Mississippi. The poorer, dumber stepchildren who were going to strain the social system. Not that long after all of this happened, there was unification, the two sides becoming one country. But before that officially happened, there were elections in East Germany where the same party that ran West Germany won and now ran East Germany. So it was a de facto unification. And I got to tell you, as a Jew whose grandparents escaped the Nazis, I felt, and I lived in Germany. I love Germany. I have a lot of German friends. But I got to tell you, I felt a chill in the air. I truly felt a sense of nationalism that scared the crap out of me. So, that was a great event. And Germany is, for all intents and purposes, doing very well. But, nothing's ever as simple as it's explained.
Yeah. That's so incredible that you were there, in history, and you've covered a lot of serious, high stakes world events. What pulled you into food storytelling?
Well, I needed to make a living. Literally, I had come back to the States and become a show producer. First at NBC, I was one of the initial co-producers of the weekend version of the Today Show. I then got fired. I'm bad with authority. I've been fired a lot. So we separated and I went on my way. I ended up at ABC as an investigative producer, and then the senior investigative producer of 2020, and then one of the 3 line producers of Good Morning America, where every third week the show was mine, subject to the executive producer's oversight. But network news started, I could see it going down the entertainment path I didn't want to follow. And I'm not saying untruths. I'm not any of the garbage that gets said today about how the media is intentionally, mainstream media is intentionally lying. That's not true. But I did see it beginning to become more interested in the entertainment side of things to attract ratings. And I was producing Good Morning America, and my boss came up to me one day. This was back when Regis Philbin had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was, a big phenomenon. And she said, there's going to be $1 million winner on the show that airs tonight. He's in your first half hour tomorrow. Now, the first half hour was pure. It was news. And once I was told that a guy who won a game show was going to be forced on me on my first half hour, I started looking to get out of news, network news, as it were. I got way out. I got offered a job as executive producer and senior vice president of a publicly traded home shopping channel in Minneapolis. And I thought, this is cool. I'll be like a corporate guy and I'll get stock options and all that stuff. I hated it. That lasted actually a year or two. Anyway, I got out, opened a production company. I was starving. I couldn't sell anything to anybody. Now, Al Roker, who now is on the main Today Show, had been on the weekend show when I had the weekend show. And, theoretically, he worked for me. Big time talent doesn't work for the producers by any means. But Al and I were friends, and Al all crap. And got any work? He says, sure. He was doing a lot of stuff for the Food Network. So he said, I can subcontract you some of the projects we have for the Food Network. So I said, great. So I started doing some food stuff. I liked it because I've always had an interest in food, especially having been overseas. I developed a real interest in the various cuisines. And, I wasn't going to get rich taking a percentage of what they were paying him. So, it was fine with him. I started pitching the network directly, and nothing was landing at all. But there was this one woman, a network executive, who was kind enough to at least take my calls. And she kind of started to feel sorry for me because I kept pitching stuff she wasn't buying. When I was doing stuff for Al, I had done a documentary on diners for the Food Network for him. And I'm on the phone with this woman one night. It's like late on a Thursday or a Friday. My home office was downstairs. It was one of these where your house is on a hill. So like you're in the basement, but there's some windows toward the back. Anyway, so I was stuck in the gloom down there. I'm pitching, and nothing's going. And finally, out of frustration or pity, she says, yeah, it's about diners. And I said to her, oh, yeah. I said, I have been developing a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And I told her all about it. And she actually said, it sounds interesting. We have a development meeting Tuesday, so get me a write-up for a 1-hour special on Monday. And I hung up, and I was happy because finally she had an interest in something, but I had just pulled the phrase out of thin air. I was not developing a show called, I just made it up right there, and I'd rather be lucky than good. That's how I ended up as a culinary journalist.
David, I love how you said I'd rather be lucky than good. I feel like I live my whole life that way.
Come on, it's funny. If you succeed at something, it's real important to remember that there were 1,000 other people as talented with the same idea who didn't stumble into the right moment of the right. I mean, I ended up canned at a local TV station in Atlanta at just the time that the NBC Atlanta bureau, that the lead producer there walked into the boss's office and said, hey, I'm going on sabbatical. And I'm going to write a book with Alex Haley. So that when I came and dutifully dropped my tape off at the bureau, thinking there was no chance, NBC's bureau doesn't have any interest in an investigative reporter from the local TV station, the bureau chief said, wait, hold on. If Alelia Bundles had not told him on that day that she was going to go write a book on the same day that I got fired, because did I have a problem with authority?
You
Anyway.
never mentioned
You
it.
might have.
Yeah, so they told me not to let it hit me in the posterior as I left. But had that not happened, I would not, so yeah. Look, I have a healthy respect for my own talent, my own ability, but there's 1,000 other guys who didn't get fired on the right day who could have done the job. So, thank you.
Thank you. So when you moved into to culinary storytelling, did you feel like it was a reinvention, or were you just using the same muscles in a new place?
Same muscles, new place. Understand something. Everyone thinks Diners is a food show. It's not. It, like all good, I mean, when I did it, I don't know what they do with it now, but all good storytelling is simply telling the stories of people. I created diners around the passions and the interests and the concerns and the personalities of people trying to make a living making food. The story, when the Berlin Wall fell, the best story I was ever involved in is I found a family. Literally, I took a translator and we went and knocked on it before the wall had physically come down. We went to, there was a row of apartment houses that were right up against the wall. I took a translator and we started knocking on doors of those apartment houses until I found a family that represented as a microcosm everything about the division of the two Germanys. And it was little Stevie and his parents and his brother. And did he have a sister? I'm trying to remember. They used to play soccer in the backyard, knocking the ball off the wall. So we did a story about them before it was knocked down, and we did a story with them after it was knocked down. And their microcosm was they had expected their relatives in the West to welcome them with open arms. They didn't. On the other hand, Dad had reacted well to capitalism and had gone to school to become a driving instructor and was opening his own driving school. It was the story of people. It was the story of little Stevie Lakovsky, who now could chase an errant soccer ball through the pillars of what used to be the wall across a pile of rubble. All storytelling in the final analysis is the story of people. So that's no different however you do it.
So this is a show about fun and bliss.
Yes.
We talk about fun not as something frivolous, but as something that we do that brings you back to life. So I'd love to find out more about you. What do you do? What does fun look like for you these days?
Well, I love to see the water, my wife and I. My beagle Fred, who is dutifully begging at my knee at the moment, makes me very happy. I'm kind of boring in one respect, which is that the thing I've always enjoyed doing the most was what I ended up doing for a living. So, even if I weren't doing it as a job, I'd be in my office on the computer editing stuff or writing. I have a book pitch out at the moment. I love to entertain. I like to have people over and to cook for them while I can talk to them from my kitchen. I guess the traditional stuff. I like stand-up comedy a lot. I'm a big Jerry Seinfeld fan. I'm a fan of great classic movie making, less so of the stuff that's currently being made. On a given day, I'll tell you the best film ever made was Casablanca, or maybe I'll tell you it was The Godfather, maybe it was Citizen Kane. Although the film that, all visual storytelling starts with making a promise to the audience and is then judged on how it fulfills that promise. And there is no film that does that better than Casablanca.
So I don't think you're boring because you love what you do. I think that's a gift. Yeah, if you're spending most of your time doing something that you find is incredibly fun, that's not boring. That's a gift. So
Well, I've wanted to do this. I remember I was, I don't know, 8 years old, 10 years old. It was my parents' car. It was an old Ford. And we were about to cross the Frogs Bridge from Long Island into the Bronx to visit my grandmother. And William B. Williams, a legendary New York disc jockey, was on the radio on WNEW, which at the time was the highest grossing radio station in America. It was a major powerhouse. And in later years, I got to be a copy boy there. It was really cool. Anyway, we're getting on the bridge, and William B. Williams makes a joke in which he uses a Yiddish word that is actually scatological. William B. Williams was not Jewish, but it's New York. Everybody knows, words like that. And I thought he was hilarious. And I said to my father, I want to do that for a living. Now, my father, God love him, may he rest in peace, was a little stuffy as an academic and said, you don't want to do that. You can do better than that. Well, no, I wanted to be initially in broadcasting. I actually convinced him I wanted to go to, as a day student, to a local boarding school when I was approaching high school age. We lived in Massachusetts at the time, because of its superior education. Actually, I wanted to go there because they had a student-run radio station. And it was by working at that radio station that I got my first professional job when I was, 14, 15, something like that, on the weekends. And then I'm old enough that Watergate happened and Woodward and Bernstein happened. And I wanted nothing more than to become a journalist and an investigative journalist. And I got to spend a fair amount of my career. I mean, I ran the investigative unit at 2020. So I've wanted to do this, since I was, 8, 10, something like that.
So fascinating. I want to go back, David, to...
I'm sorry, we do not go backwards.
We don't go back to diners, dive-ins, and dives. So an interesting story. My husband and I do a date night every single week. No matter where in the country I am, I come back to him or vice versa. And when we were early in our marriage, we were dead broke. We made so little money, and we had just bought this house that took everything we had. So date night was always an adventure, and we love to go out eating. We're major foodies. And so we started this project of finding diners. And the thing that we loved about the diners was the people that we met, the passion of the people that owned it, and even the cooks, right? Everybody there was fully involved in this project, and the food tasted like nothing you could get at like the more expensive restaurants. And I know that this is kind of what you represented in your TV show, right? That was what it was all about for you.
It was about passionate people who gave a damn.
That's right. And so why do you feel like the show connected so deeply to the audience?
There are a number of reasons. One is not to in any way demean what I created, because I'm very proud of it. It's really terrific white noise. You can put it on in the background and you can watch, you cannot watch. Number two, everybody eats. Most importantly, however, as I said earlier, is TV is a shared experience. You want to hang out with people you like. And we populated the show with people you like. And number four, Guy, although when I got him, he was green as hell, is by nature the most intrinsically talented and charismatic TV performer I've ever worked with. Someone with that talent, I can, you don't do it alone, but I can make him great. Someone who doesn't have a lot of talent, I can't make great. I might not be able to make them good. If you have it, you have it. If you're a good cook, I can make you a great, well, not me, but someone can make you a great cook. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. So I think diners provided companionship. It also provided a kind of sensual voyeurism. I mean, food is, our senses react to food. I shot that food very carefully. It was beautiful. It was supposed to be beautiful. We put a tremendous, and we did, and there were all sorts of other tricks. I mean, very few people understand the degree to which, now I'm going to get technical, audio, sound is so much more important to visual storytelling than people realize. If I give you a contiguous background soundtrack where nothing seems as if it was edited and it all works together, it immerses you, I can get away with all sorts of video cuts. It's the sound that will bring you in. What so many cooking shows lack, because cooking under a hood usually, and you can't really hear very well. Every episode, I spent 23 hours in audio post-production, including, while editorially, I insisted everything in the show be true, I did use one particular Hollywood trick of what's called Foley or sweetening, which is I would add sound effects, you may call it, but usually you actually create them in a studio. I would add the appropriate sound to everything you saw on the screen. You know, if I went to flip that burger, first you heard it sizzle, then you heard the spatula, then you heard the plop. all of that brought you into the experience. So you were living an experience that in real life you would enjoy. And because remember, food is hard, it's hard to convey the wonders of food without taste or smell. So
Yeah.
we had to use the other tricks to get there. But let me go back to one thing. It's still all about the people. These are people you want to hang out with.
I want to ask you a question about food itself.
Okay.
I know that food's something that's important for you. You talked about it a lot. So what do you think food unlocks in people that a normal conversation might not?
Well, when you're eating, you're doing something primal. When you're eating people, you're a real putz, you're sharing. I can't stand people who won't share food. So right off the bat, you're exchanging, you're sharing. It's bringing you closer to other people. And as far back as ancient times, socialization has taken place around food. It's also an opportunity to talk about anything you want. Pass the gravy. What'd you think of this? What'd you think of that? Or at Thanksgiving, you can, have political arguments with your uncle. But it is historically, meals are the time when people came together. And I think we've lost a lot of that in the 20th and 21st centuries. And I think we're paying a price for that as everyone lives on a device and doesn't talk to each other. The fact that families don't, in many cases, probably most cases, sit down for an evening meal at which you got to tell somebody else what you did that day. I think that's a tragic loss for culture and society and human development.
I happen to actually agree with that. I think that was a big piece in what kept my family so close. Was no matter what was going on in our lives, mom and dad insisted that we all sat down for dinner. And as teenagers, us girls like rolling our eyes and puffing loudly, but we had to sit there and have dinner with our parents. And I actually really appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's gone to a great extent.
Mhm.
Or if
Yeah.
people are sitting at the table together, they're each reading their phones, which is just awful.
Yeah.
Just awful. And it's funny too, because look, I have an appreciation for food, which is heightened by the fact I ate myself into a health crisis. I've always had weight problems, but a couple of years ago, my doctor said, "You're going to die." My blood sugar was like 260 something. My A1C, for anyone who understands this stuff, was over 8. And I had to change my relationship with food. I've lost 85 pounds. My numbers are great. And thanks to Ozempic, by the way. But food, if you have a healthy relationship, can give you a tremendous amount of pleasure. Now, for me, I have to be very careful, but I can still take great pleasure. I mean, I made Philadelphia roast pork sandwiches tonight for me and my wife, and there's nothing better on the face of the earth. People think it's cheesesteak that is the quintessential Philly sandwich. It's not. It's the roast pork sandwich, invented at John's Roast Pork. Or go to the West Coast, go up to Santa Barbara and have a tri-tip, a cut of meat that people on the East Coast don't even know exists, done in what Northern Californians, Central Californians think of as barbecue. It's not. It's grilling. Barbecue is a whole other low and slow thing. But there's something just, food can take you a place that other things can't. I mean, my daughter, when she was younger, said to me, we were talking about some country that I had been to, and she said, "Dad, how come every time I ask you about a place, you end up talking about food?" And I tried to explain to her, your memory to some extent is imprinted by the things that matter a lot to you. And additionally, having first moved overseas before the internet and unprepared to know anything about the places I was going, because I never thought I would leave America, I quickly had to figure out what each country was about. And one of the best ways to learn that is through the food and sharing it with people from those places. And I have no idea where this ramble started, but next question.
Well, David, I just wanted to say that so my husband and I have been to 72 countries together.
All right.
Yeah, everything, it's all about the food and the people, just like you said. We actually moved to France and lived there for a year and a half so we could
Do you speak?
Well, not anymore.
Where in France?
Lyon.
Hello.
Right, you would know that what.
Hello.
But I think what is so fascinating about food is it really, and I think this was because of the sitting around the dinner table with my parents, it gives you this feeling of belonging. There's something that we are now sharing and enjoying and savoring together, and we're in this experience and we're having this conversation, and whatever it is that we're sharing, we're doing it over something special. Do you agree with me on that? I
Oh,
feel like,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Look, humans want connection. What
Mhm.
better a connection than sharing a meal, than handing a plate to someone? It's absolutely primal. Okay, 70 degrees. If you could only have one meal, what country would it be in?
It would be in France.
I'd go Spain.
Thailand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thailand?
Thailand.
Which
Or
dish?
Japan. Or Japan.
Or Japan?
Mhm.
Well, you got me beat there because I don't really know Asia. I've only been to Hong Kong where I had an incredible meal at a working man's cafe where my family was with me. We were there for the equestrian side of the Beijing Olympics, which were held in Hong Kong because no one would take horses into mainland China for fear of illness. I mean, they claimed it was there for other reasons, but so we're in this really blue collar downstairs huge room with communal tables, and we're the only non-Asians there, and we're pointing. Basically, it's a dim sum place. They walk around with the woven baskets, and I point to one woven basket, and a guy behind me who hadn't said a word to us pipes up in broken English, and he says, "That not for you." It was duck foot. It was fine, but that not for you.
A similar story.
Yeah, please. Hey, your podcast.
The very first time I arrived in France, I was with my parents, and I think I was 20 or 21, whatever. And we had just gone through the channel, it was brand new. And there was this big cafe at the station on the other side of the channel. And we got there and we went into this French restaurant. It's huge, it's packed with people. And we had this waiter. He was the epitome of the French waiter. He was huge. He was like round. He had a bald head. He was wearing his black and white tux and he had his silver platter, literally walking around like this. And he gave us our menus. And that was back in the days when if you spoke English, you were dirt. You had to speak French, right? And none of us.
I don't think that's changed a whole lot.
I love the French, so I've learned a lot. But in those days, whatever. So we didn't know anything. And so we sit down. This gentleman was really, really kind for a French waiter. He gives us the menu, and we just start pointing. And now he's doing charades for us, and it was so funny. And finally, so we all pick our stuff, and finally he gets to me, and I was like, I want this. And he gets his eyes bug out. They're so big. And he goes like he's, if you can't see my face, but his face is like full of fear. And he starts smacking his head and mooing.
What was it?
With sweetbreads.
Oh, okay.
Cat brains. But he's like,
no, that's not brains. It's pituitary gland.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, but in any case, he's like smacking his head and mooing, and we're like, "What is going on?" We can't help stop laughing, and finally, I'm like, "You pick," and he brought me Madame or Miss a croque monsieur,
croque madame.
yeah, a croque madame, whatever. So that's what he brought me.
I thought you were going to end up with tripe or blood sausage.
No. He was kind, like I said. But it was just eventually we were able to like look it up in our little guidebook what this thing was. But I will never forget the look on his face as he was smacking his head, mooing. It was
Look,
so funny.
And we as a culture are known and reviled for our wasteful failure to eat all of the animals.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, but he also knew that his customer was not going to be okay.
Oh yeah, his restaurant was on the other side of the channel.
That's right.
He'd seen.
That's
before.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was so funny, so memorable.
No, look, eating in Europe is, with rare exception, a lovely experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I judge a place based on if I stumble into a place with no recommendation, what are my odds that it's going to be good?
Yeah.
New York, very high.
Yes.
Even Chicago to some extent. There are a few American cities where you stand a really good chance of getting a good meal. The number of places in Europe where that rule is true is infinite. And, I tend to forget, we live an hour and a half south of New York City. I tend to forget, because I don't spend a lot of time in the city anymore, on the rare occasion that we go in there and I stumble into some place for a meal, it reminds me, oh yeah, everyday food is better than what's available where I am.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
So speaking of American food, your
Yeah.
book, Food Americana, looks at
Yes,
American
available on Amazon by several copies.
Yes, don't just buy one copy. You should buy at least
No,
three.
call me. I'll sign it for you. Buy a copy.
So, your book it looks at the culture, the history, the communities of American cuisine. What surprised you most while writing it?
I shouldn't have been surprised, but how many myths persist in terms of origin stories? No, the first hamburger wasn't made at Louis' lunch. No, the first ice cream cone was not produced at the World's Fair in St. Louis. I the pat stories are real stories. Secondly, I'm not sure, but I was fascinated by the degree to which, look, we built a cuisine out of the cuisines of other countries and cultures, most brought here by immigrants, some from Native Americans, such as our use of lobster, which kept the pilgrims from dying. But I was fascinated by the evolution of these foods into American food. You go to a Chinese restaurant with some snobby guy and he'll say, well, this isn't authentic. No, it's not authentic food that you'd get in Beijing, but it's authentic Chinese American food as it evolved in the United States. Well, in the case of Chinese food, after the gold rush in California, where a bunch of guys came from Canton province to pan for gold, and along with them came some restaurateurs and merchants to keep them supplied. And those restaurateurs realized pretty quickly that Americans weren't going to eat the stuff that they would eat, because we didn't eat nose to tail. So they invented something called chop suey, either an evolution of a dish that was made in China using innards, or there's two schools of thought on this, or maybe just a whole new dish invented for Americans only. And in its first incarnation, Chinese food in America was chop suey, and then it evolved from there. And I General Cho's chicken, but there's a great documentary and book called In Search of General Cho, written by Jennifer Eight Lee, where she went back to Taiwan to find the guy who invented General Cho's chicken, and she showed him a picture of what it became in America, and he was like aghast. So we evolve things. You would never find American pizza in Italy.
That's true.
Italians came over here to find a different kind of wheat that has a different protein percentage, different kind of ovens, coal versus wood, so that the crust came out different. And more importantly, an abundance, to use the Italian word abbondanza, of ingredients available to poor people here, because being poor here was not as poor as being poor in the south of Italy, where you couldn't even afford pasta, except maybe if you were lucky on Sunday, and where pizza was nothing more than dough with some tomato on it. And if you had a really good week, a piece of lard, which is why Italian American cuisine quickly became huge and filled with meat. Why the pasta sauce, or as we know it in Jersey, Sunday sauce, elsewhere in the country they call it Sunday gravy, why it is now built around immense amounts of pork and beef, because it could be. That's what we have here, and hence we created a new cuisine. I'm fascinated by how we've done that with all sorts of Mexican American food. Look, Mexican American food began as an entity in the United States after the Mexican American War, when we took half of Mexico, and there were a bunch of Mexicans who suddenly were stuck here who were American, and they, like the Chinese, realized that they weren't going to do real well selling their traditional foods to Americans, because many of them were too spicy. And secondarily, now they couldn't get many of the ingredients that they used to be able to get. So Mexican food changed and splintered into many, many directions of Mexican American cuisine, which is terrific. What's interesting is it's one of the cuisines that there's now been a resurgence in Mexican food as eaten in Mexico, as Americans lately develop an interest in what would have been called authentic. I hate the word authentic, but I tend to refer to it as food as eaten in that country. I mean, look, for my book, I was taken to this mall in Queens, in Flushing, which is ironically where I was born. It was heavily Jewish at the time. Now it's heavily Asian. There's a mall there, a food court, a massive food court that makes food the way you'd find it in China. And I loved it. But you're not going to get most Americans to chow down on tendon and artery. And it was, look, the food was phenomenal. Read my book. I tell you about it. But that's not Chinese American food. That's Chinese food. And more to the point, even Chinese food, you know, we don't understand for the most part as a country that there is no, with rare exception, there's not a national cuisine anywhere. There are a series of regional cuisines that developed out of what was available based on the climate conditions in that part of the country. You know, I've read, I think there's like arguably 28 different cuisines in Italy. So, and yes, there are some dishes that have now, you know, Peking duck has achieved mythical status as the national dish of China. It's still not eaten by most people in most places in China. For one thing, it's a very complicated and often expensive dish. It is terrific, but cuisines are regional. They're local, and you know, it's kind of funny to see. Now we're being asked to spend more money at expensive restaurants for stuff from down the road, as opposed to stuff that came in from Cisco or U.S. Foods.
I feel like I could talk to you forever because food is probably one of my favorite topics in the entire world.
Oh, great. I got 6 or
But
7
yeah,
hours.
I was going to say we don't
My
actually
wife's
have
watching
that
a
time.
movie. My dog's here eating snacks. I mean, what the heck?
So yes, I would love to do that, David, but we do need to kind of get to tie this up, unfortunately. So I want to ask you, this show is all about fun and bliss. And we talk about something called blissciplines, which are small habits or rituals that make life feel more joyful and alive. Could you share some of your blissciplines?
I feel like learning stuff has become tremendously devalued. As I think I mentioned earlier, I was successful as a journalist because I have a tremendous sense of curiosity. Being curious, especially in an age where there's Google now, you can find out almost anything. You know, the old joke is we've invented a device that puts all of the accumulated knowledge of all of mankind over all the millennia into a small device, and we use it to watch cat videos. Do something also, and I'm not going to pretend I go to a lot of museums, but I'd like to see us rekindle our interest in. When I go to France, yeah, it's the food, but it's also the Musée d'Orsay and the impression.
Oh my gosh, and just the building.
Yeah,
It's just
I
so
mean,
beautiful.
but you go into that Degas room with all the pastels, and you're in another existence. And I just I see, and again, I'm not a highfalutin snob. I don't go to a lot of museums. But when I'm in Paris, I go there because that's not art I'm supposed to see. That's art I want to see. That moves my soul. The most move my soul. While impressive, does not move my soul. Well, okay, good.
But I'm with you on the Musée d'Orsay. That is my favorite.
For me, it's impressionist art, and the pointillists. I mean, Seurat and Sunday in the Park and all. But yeah, that's joyful for me, and really good classic rock. I came of age as rock music was coming of age, and I get great enjoyment out of Steely Dan and Elton John and obviously the Beatles because I'm old. But I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's where I find some fun.
That
Yeah. We want to do a really quick laser round. We're just going to ask you 3 quick questions. Give us a 1-sentence answer that comes to your mind immediately, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Finish this sentence. Bliss for me looks like.
My wife.
No, I love that answer. What?
33 years of me saying whatever you want, dear.
Oh, good
Happy
man.
wife, happy life.
Yeah, you are a smart man.
What's your go-to when you need an instant joy boost?
These days,
Yeah.
Uncrustables.
Uncrustable.
Straight from the freezer. Peanut butter and jelly Uncrustables straight from
Oh
the
my God,
freezer.
my favorite.
Okay, I don't know what these are. This is on my list
I
now.
will bring you
what?
some. I know.
It's a pre-made peanut butter and jelly sandwich with no crust. It's round. Smucker's makes them. They're frozen. And over the last few years, they have become the go-to protein boost for pro football players. The NFL buys them literally by the ton.
Ooh. And
They're
I will
incredible.
send you some, Monique.
All right.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, we got time for one more. Which one do you want?
You go for it.
Okay. What is the tastiest little bite you have had recently?
Well, I hate to be repetitive, but it would be halava.
Which kind of halwa? Is it the Indian or Jewish?
The Jewish.
Okay.
Especially the stuff brought back from the old city by a friend.
Perfect. I love
Okay.
that. Good.
Yeah.
So tell us about your podcast and your books and your resources. How can we reach you?
Well, yeah, the book is Food Americana. You can get it on Amazon. It's got its own Facebook. The podcast, Culinary Characters Unlocked, is available on all platforms and on YouTube. It's a video podcast, or you can listen to it, or you can do both. I mean, run 2 shows at once. On it, I talk with the most interesting people in the world of food. Of the most recent, I think there were 13 or 14 competitive James Beard Award-winning chefs this year. I booked 12 of them.
Nice.
When the Michelin stars come out, I book a ton of those chefs. But I'm also booking mom and pops and just anyone who I think is doing interesting stuff with food and is an interesting, entertaining person. And they're really enjoyable. I mean, the one that's up this week with Kevin O'Donnell, he's a chef in Rhode Island who is doing mostly what he calls freestyle Italian, but his life story is fascinating. He interned in and then worked as an executive chef in Italy. Then he came back to the States. Then he got a call from a friend in Europe, and he moved to Paris, where he opened. Maybe you know the place, L'Office.
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, he was the initial chef at L'Office at the time that Le Figaro named it the best new bistro in Paris. He was the guy.
Oh.
And now he's back home in Rhode Island making mostly Italian food, and he runs a pizzeria, and he's raising his family where he was born. It's those kinds of stories that I enjoy telling, and that you'll find at Culinary Characters Unlocked.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been
fun.
It's been a delicious conversation.
For me too. Thank you both.
David, we would love to find out, do you have one URL, like one place that people can find all your information?
Yeah, culinarycharactersunlocked.com.
You got it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
All right.
We'll take care. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye. That
was such an amazing conversation.
Oh my God. I could have just talked to him for hours.
What did you love about that?
First of all, if I get to talk about food to anybody, I am in heaven. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. But what I loved about him is this understanding that food is so much more about food than about food, right? It's about comfort and family and connection and belonging and all of those things. And it can show up in all different kinds of foods. So he talks about Michelin star restaurants. He talks about diners. He talks about Uncrustables. Like there's the whole gamut. And I find that that's true in my life too, is that food is just, it's so much bigger than just food. So I just loved, it was really validating for me to meet somebody else like that, because it's kind of a rare thing. And I wish that there was more, because there's so much pleasure in really experiencing food in that way.
Yeah, love that. I think for one of the things I really loved about that conversation was this about the stories, like the
Yeah.
storytelling aspects, and a story from the Berlin Wall and all those little stories that from that family, on the other side of the wall
Yeah.
to the stories behind the chefs that he interviews and all the stories in between. And also the fact of loving like his work being so fun, right? Which we're all about that too,
Yeah.
right? There's this song, basically I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation.
Yeah.
And he was really embodying that. So that was very inspiring. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. I will say he was very inspiring on so many levels.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening, I think if you know somebody who needs to hear this, right? Either somebody who's a foodie and would really have so much fun listening to the conversation about fun, or the just the even the little nuggets around how do you make a food show engaging and and everything in between. Please share this episode with them, and they're gonna appreciate it. This is a real, it's a great one, especially for the foodies in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find out more about David and all of his offerings at culinary charactersunlocked.com. So that's culinary charactersunlocked.com. Say that 3 times. And then you can also pick up his book, Food Americana, for a deeper look at the people, cultures, and stories about around American cuisine, which is absolutely fascinating. And you can get that on Amazon.
Yes. And David's fun spark for all of us is to eat the cannoli.
I'm all in, just
Yeah,
saying.
which I haven't had a cannoli since I was in Sicily. I went to Sicily for my daughter's wedding about a year and a half ago and had delicious cannolis there.
Yeah.
But I haven't had one since. So
We'll have to find some good cannoli.
I'm willing to take on the challenge. That would be fun.
It's awesome. So, everybody who's listened today, thank you so much for joining us for this fun and bliss conversation. We love having you here
Yeah.
and look forward to seeing you again next time. And until then,
Have fun.
and be blissful. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
later. Thank you for tuning in to the Fun and Bliss Show.
Where fun is our practice.
And bliss is our lifestyle.
If this episode sparked your joy,
Share it, subscribe, and join the movement.
stay fun,
Stay blissful.
and see you next time.
Feet on the ground. This emotion